participated in winning proposals. That should be able to allow me to share some of my experiences that I have. So we want to start by looking why should we really do this particular course, and in particular regarding supervision. There are facts that are not realized by supervisors. We know, like I said yesterday, the head of department.
Prof.
Yes, please.
Prof. Do you have your slide presentation?
Yes.
It's not visible.
Oh, okay. So this is the slide presentation. Maybe I go to the normal one. Will this one be okay?
The slides are not visible.
Oh, I don't know what went wrong. So all of it, what I've been going through, you haven't seen it?
No, we're just seeing your face.
Oh, let me share again, maybe.
Okay.
Okay. It says the host disabled participant screen sharing. So can I ask?
Javan, are you there, Javan?
Yes, I've activated.
Okay.
Go ahead and share again.
Okay, there they are.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll go back to quickly to what I have just said, that of late in supervision, we are getting to a situation where more than one supervisor are encouraged, and it's because of some of the research areas might require expertise from different backgrounds, and therefore having more than one supervisor is very helpful. But also I say that one of my experiences that I have researched, published a number of papers in different journals, but also participated in writing winning proposals. So we move now to why should we have this particular course like the one we're having today. There are facts that supervisors may not realize, that students, especially the MSc ones, have come from different backgrounds. And that means they need to be kind of, taught or coached or, kind of guided on maybe a standard way or an acceptable way of conducting research. And some of them may not have actually, done any kind of research proposal development. Some years ago, we are doing some case studies of our students at the university, and they went around, different employers, and they were asking a number of questions. One of them was how to develop, proposals. And they could see that there were some differences. And they would say some university, graduates from some universities had no idea of developing, a research proposal, which was very important for the job that they are doing. But others who were exposed to, projects, they were, they found it more comfortable, and they could have at least some idea, and then their supervisors, job supervisors could, improve the proposal. So really, we have students, coming from different backgrounds, and we shouldn't assume that all of them know what is expected. So it shouldn't be like you just tell them, this is okay, you have your topic, go ahead and write a proposal. I think in such cases, I would recommend that when one gets a number of students, like maybe one or several of them, it's good to sit down with them maybe for a session that will actually, introduce them to the concepts of research, but also the process of doing research. So that one becomes very important. But students, we should realize that students, like maybe I mentioned yesterday, that when they come to the university, they have some gap in their knowledge and the skills, so they want to do that. So we should be prepared to train them, because if they are comfortable about knowledge and the skills, they wouldn't come to the university. So we should take them as some people who are demanding to have some kind of information, knowledge, and the skills. So as a supervisor, we have duties, and we have been charged with the responsibility of training them in research skills. They will make mistakes once and again. You shouldn't, feel like these are really hopeless people. But we should keep on, guiding them and come to a point where, they can write good proposals. If we look up, back at ourselves, we see how we have changed from maybe the time we were doing MSc until now. Every time we are improving, and then we attend, trainings such as this one, and I learn something out of it. I remember some years ago, we had a training at ICAD about proposal writing, and we were exposed to, situations where somebody was saying, for some projects, some donors would want a 2-page, maybe proposal, or a 2-page concept note for a 10 billion, dollar thing. Whereas others, they would want, a proposal that would be very long for a small amount of money. So such, as a researcher, you would learn something and use it maybe in your, your work. So it is worth noting that even with amongst our sub-supervisors, there are, one would say, these are good ones. These are, I don't want to say bad ones, but not good ones. And then even within the university, we know there are some people who are prolific in publication. There are some people who always have, projects, whereas while others, they don't have. So we should note this kind of, situation and maybe weaknesses that may be amongst ourselves. Some, we know that some supervisors have not demonstrated the capacity to write quality research proposals. And what would you expect now from such? It will be, something really terrible. And some supervisors are rarely main authors in papers. I think some universities also demand that you should be a main author in your publication that you are presenting for promotion purposes. But you'll find some staff, they're always the last or somewhere in the middle. That means something. Either they are not, they are not really contributing a lot in the research, or there is something problematic. So there are issues which also make us why we should train in the supervision process. There are issues to do with the supervisors. I've already mentioned about single and several supervisors, whereby while it is good to have several, but also can be a problem if they are not well managed. I think we discussed this yesterday. Sometimes you have limited engagement with the students, supervisors not being available, and I think we should make time for this, because it is an important activity. Then there could be conflict or no agreement with fellow supervisors. I think we discussed this yesterday. When there is a conflict, something should be done. It was also on the WhatsApp, message that I saw. Supervisors not conversant with processes for completion of studies. This is to do with yesterday's, discussion about the rules and regulations. Some supervisors might be taken unaware to realize that somebody is supposed to graduate in 6 months, yet he or she is very far from completing the work. There are issues of limited competence in some concepts, methods, and analysis. Yes, there is no master for everything. So some supervisors might be good in one area, but also poor in another one. So where one is poor and one not competent, rather, or in one area, we should seek assistance from other, experts. In particular, to do with the statistics. I think statistics, is a problem to many researchers, and therefore we have specialized people who can, assist when such situation arises. So we recognize that as it is for lecturing in the university, where many lecturers are not really trained as teachers. So you will see that, there will be a situation whereby lecturers will be lecturing as the way their lecturers lectured. And similarly, if you are supervised by kind of a less serious or an involving, supervisor, it means you might also inherit the same kind of attitude and character, and therefore supervise similarly. So really having such a course, in a way, tries to come and kind of, harmonize, some issues that really need to be, taken care of or considered while supervising, not to rely on the way your supervisor did for you. You might have, delayed to graduate because of the responsibility or irresponsibility of your supervisor. Then you say, okay, PhD, you can't have it, in less than 3 years or 4 years. So such thing, is really, detrimental to the development of, students. There are issues of students. Again, there could be limited guidance from supervisor, and some people complain that I don't see my supervisor. Unavailability of supervisors for consultation, yes. Delay in getting supervisors' feedback, that is a very serious one, whereby a student will submit his or her work, and then it will take so long for the supervisor to give feedback. And that is very serious, and that's why in some universities, they propose a calendar of consultation and feedback so that there is evidence that, it pushes the supervisor to do actually his or her work. Supervisors may not also be critical enough. They get a job, a submission from a student. They don't take time to go through it and, try to criticize, some of the areas. So they'll just look at it and put maybe a mark just on a single word and move to the next one and then say, okay, continue. So such a work may not, produce a very good result. Supervisors, not providing direction. We need to actually tell students, whether they are on the right track and how they should go about it. Supervisors disregard social and cultural issues and economic challenges. Students face a number of issues like any other human being, like lecturers. When a supervisor falls sick or has a relative sick, he or she will travel and go and attend to such a problem. But when it comes to on the side of the student, we don't take it as something that is to be attended. So we need to look at the students as an individual, as a human being, and see the challenge that they may be facing, and get involved, try to assist or advise, comfort, and even encourage students about what might be going on. For the university, of course, the university wants students to graduate on time, so that it creates a very good image for students and get more enrollment, get more money out of the fees. So these are things that they are clearly known, but sometimes we don't really notice that they are very important in actually smooth supervision. So with all those kind of challenges and observations, the objective of this morning session is really to create awareness of the importance and the type of engagement of supervisors from the beginning to the end of the student research work. So at the end, we expect that you will acknowledge the importance of really, good supervision, getting involvement, and the type of engagement at the different stages of the process. We'll be looking some of these, stages of the proposal and part of the report, writing, and try to highlight some of the few issues that one may have to consider in order to treat the, the subject area or the topic or the, fairly. We'll look at the concept writing as the first part of the proposal or research. Then insights into thesis writing and writing a publication, and then finally look at the issues of plagiarism. as we did yesterday and as we are doing now, it is a PPT, interactive. Like I said, if you have got something that requires clarification, please interrupt. And at the end, we will have a Q&A session of about 30 minutes. So like it was yesterday, it's not going to be a lecture and non-stop talk. Also, you are encouraged to intervene. We'll now move on to look at the role of supervisor. Yesterday, we are looking at the responsibilities of supervisors as well as students. Today, we look at really more or less the same, but looking at the supervision. And we want to go through rules that are written down by universities. So as a supervisor, our main roles is to help students on a scientific level by guiding the student about, choices, the choices of topic, choices related to justification of the research, project, the research methodology, scientific review, and the structure of the thesis. So it is not about imposing scientific choices to the students. I know in some cases it happens. A student comes and the supervisor has 1 or 2 projects, and then he will say, you must work on this subject. Really, the word must sometimes is used, and if the student doesn't work, doesn't agree, then a conflict, starts. But like I said yesterday, in some cases, even, locally, but also more of students who study abroad, you will go to a professor and they find he has a project. So maybe the project has advanced halfway, or, it has just started. So you'll be asked to fit and then work on a certain, objective or, subject. So you have some differences, in the way learning is achieved. So at the doctoral level, it is assumed that, since they have done, previous research, maybe at MS level, they remain in charge of their own thesis. Now, the issue is if you are given a topic already, or you are fitting in another project, so the question is really whether you are in charge or partly in charge. That is something that is debatable. But definitely, we should remember that at MSc or PhD level, it is still, a learning stage. So there are some things that someone ought to learn or should have learned before graduating. So if everything is already set, the question of how much one learns out of, the process of going through MSc PhD might be questionable. In the end, it will be reflected in the performance when it comes to being, given responsibilities, maybe to guide or write proposals. So a supervisor guides, but does not replace the doctoral student from a scientific perspective. That should be ideally what we should consider. That we guide, but we should not really replace, their own, scientific perspective. So I mentioned about, 2 situations. One where a student comes up with his or her own idea, and another one where a student, fits in a given project. So a student coming up with their own research project, first of all, he is conceiving his own idea. So he has accomplished, learning how to come up with an idea that is researchable, an idea that is important, unlike a student who fits in a big project that is already, the idea has already been conceived. And then the aspect of developing a proposal will be completed because he will, be involved right from the beginning till the end. But if we consider now a student who fits within the preconceived project idea and already approved and maybe already working, we see that between the case of own idea generation and one that fits, a remain, a problem for the one who just fits in, because really there is less challenges that the one who fits in an existing idea or preconceived idea learns a lot. In some cases, you'll find all the methodologies have already been developed, the methods have already been identified, so one is given just a lab space and equipment or chemical and proceed. And in many cases, he will be guided not to produce poor results, but rather than learning how to go through the process of research. So it's very important to think about it. I know professors, supervisors have projects. So while people are encouraged to use students, MSc, PhD to do part of the project, we should keep in mind that while you involve them, try to also make them learn something out of it. It is possible that somebody fits within a project, comes in to collect the data, but you could find some time to let him or her work backwards. Think of a different, idea as a means of training, and let him or her develop the idea, come up with objectives, and in the course of that, you will have at least filled the gap. As he leaves, then he can do, the work independently. Already concluded that there is less learning in the case of students who fits with an existing, project as opposed to the other one. Why? Okay, while he fits in, the student will find, the idea is not his or her own; it has been developed. So as he leaves, this is not if he's not careful. Next time he's at the job and is told to come up with the proposals, it will be difficult for him to think and conceive an idea. The process of articulating some research problem would be also a challenge, and then justification of the proposal again might be a problem. Formulation of objectives and the hierarchy, the methodology, etc., etc. So really, fitting in has some advantages because the student says, okay, it is already done. I just write and get my PhD or my MSc, but it has got some disadvantage. And perhaps if you trace back amongst workers, you'll find that maybe those who don't work or are not effective in research, maybe they may have gone through a different system. So really, with all those, one can really say that I think there is a need for this kind of training, which we can share our own experiences and maybe how we can improve on what is existing, because there are some unavoidable circumstances. Like I said, yes, you have a big project, you want to engage 3 PhDs, but how do you balance between getting the work done, but also learning some of the things that one might have missed. So we can now perhaps jump into the role of supervisors. We have already mentioned somehow, but the key issue is guidance. But there are 2 areas which one the supervisor could be involved in. The first one, which is the key one, is the scientific guidance or scientific supervision. So, apart from that one, the issue of scientific supervision, going through the process of developing a proposal, writing it, and implementing it, there are the non-technical aspects. This is to ensure that the student has good working conditions. Good working conditions. Universities differ in the way they handle postgraduate students based on differences in the setup, facilities, etc., etc. In some universities, a doctoral student will have an office with an AC chair, etc., etc. So he or she really, finds herself in a working condition that may be comparable to the workplace where she comes from. In some cases, students are just given a desk or maybe a space of 1 meter or less than 1 meter by half a meter in a laboratory or somewhere, if it could be even on the corridor, I don't know. So there are some variations, and the facilities that may be available for the student may differ also. Now, such differences will definitely, have an implication on the performance of the students. We know, I mean, from whatever university you come from, you know what is going on, and whether you are happy about it or not, based also on your experience and the work on the work performance. That may be an issue that maybe we might, discuss with whoever gives money or provides facilities to improve. Really, it's very important to have, good working conditions, supportive and what. So even things like having where to have coffee or tea, what kind of arrangements. Some universities, well, they will just welcome a student and then, leave him or her, like on her own. So that is really, unfair. But in some cases, really, the supervisor will be close to the student, asking him or her, how he or she has been doing. There are issues of accommodation, especially for the international students who are coming in. Language might be a problem. So many things, could happen. So I know there are some sections or departments, students sections in the university that have that kind of responsibility. But as you may know, in some cases, they may not work perfectly. But because those work almost with the groups of students, but between a supervisor and a supervisee, I think there could be a more close, kind of engagement. And like for a PhD, you are with someone for 4 to 5 years. That is quite a long time, 6 years. So you build, some kind of a good relationship, and very carefully manage it, because being with someone for 5 years, there are also chances that you might differ in some areas. So it's very important. So some of the engagement could be strictly professional relationship, and this relationship will actually might develop even beyond, the study period, and eventually the student becomes a collaborator in other researches, and you can, as a supervisor, also gain from the student in terms of publications as you work together and publish together. So we take it that if all those things are taken care of, technical and non-technical issues, chances are that the student might successfully complete the studies without much hurdles. And I've seen especially the women students sometimes being mothers, they have big responsibilities while they are studying, but they may have their kids at home. So half of the mind is at home and half is at school. So without really managing, issues, the student might be frustrated, and they even, decided to postpone studies for that reason, or even, abandon studies. There are issues of families. Some people may not be open, but it is always good, to discuss what is really, disturbing, the student, and then if he or she discloses, it could be sorted out and eventually lead to smooth completion of studies. Supervision or guidance with students. There are a number of issues that we want to look at. One is the issue of monitoring. We need to be aware, where the student is, what is being done, and where in the implementation plan of activities, where he or she is, so that she's on the right track, so that we can really guide her. Some of these things we are seeing here, they are found also in the responsibilities we saw yesterday, but in this one we are really focusing on the research. So the role of the supervisor here is overseeing, not doing it. we remember we talked about, corruption. You might develop some close friendship with a student for some reasons, and then eventually find that you are really doing the work for him or her. In such cases, you are not supporting learning, because this guy will get a degree. In the end, he or she is nothing. And we have seen, examples on some cases where definitely people, we have junior, middle, and the senior people in the university. And like always, junior people look upon senior, people as being, people who are knowledgeable, skilled, and, they are responsible. But there are times when, say, you have some assignments either from within the university, coming from within the university or from government, and the management would want someone to take charge, to chair maybe a committee or a task force or do something. Then a professor is told, can you please, chair this? And then you'll see the professor shying away, saying, I cannot do it. Oh, cannot do it? What happened? You went through MSc, you did PhD, you have been supervising, you have been attending conferences, every time. What are you actually doing? You have going to learn something? So you really doubt whether this actually, went through what is expected in the, in the training, process. One example that I know, which is really bad, I know two guys, one lady, one man. They were somehow related in some way, and they wrote a book on microbiology. I think it is basic microbiology. And when it came now to sharing of teaching load, one of the authors, staff authors, was asked to teach microbiology. And I don't want to say he or she. This staff refused, saying that he was not an expert in microbiology. So one wonders, how did you author a book of microbiology? It means he was just, he was just given a ride on the book. So such things, do happen. So we might assume that all supervisors are equally competent, but actually they may not. So we need to examine ourselves and, be truthful to ourselves and do whatever is needful. And if we are deficient in some areas, take some time to learn, and then you might improve. So in order really for the work to be done rightly, supervisor may be required to guide the student. And where we see some deficiencies, you may need, like I mentioned before, give some short training on some areas, or even provide, information, documentation, and, direct him where he or she could get more assistance from amongst, fellow staff members. And then, things, move. So if you are also guiding, you should be guiding, the student on various sections or parts of the research proposal development. You should also be knowledgeable. If you are not, it is never too late to learn how to do it, and then, you get something out of it. There are, in the universities, a lot of things, happen. There are meetings in the past. There are really, contact meetings, but these days you have, virtual meetings, conferences, trainings, and what. You see some, staff members who are not really concerned. A lot of things happen, but they are nowhere to be seen participating. You find them, of course, enjoying themselves somewhere with a cold glass of beer. So if you stay in the university for 30 years and you are the same person from the beginning to the end, then you are almost, you have really lost hope of further development. That's why we normally said it is not a question of getting a PhD that is important. It is what you do after that PhD, or what you do with that PhD. And therefore, we see also the universities, you graduate together, you get your PhD now, but 10 years later, this one is already high up. Maybe he's a senior lecturer or associate professor, while the other one is still a lecturer. So there will be differences, and these differences tell, a story about, the capability maybe of, or commitment of some staff members. So supervisors therefore need to have some kind of a checklist to ensure that what is necessary to make a good proposal or report has been addressed. Here really I mean like we'll see later the various sections of the proposal. So if it is introduction, what should one expect in introduction? So you read through the text of introduction, 1 or 2, 3 pages, and then you see as you break it up into kind of a superficial section, you see, has this kind of issue been addressed in this particular introduction? What about the issue of maybe importance? Is it there? So that that kind of thing or reason can constitute a checklist. And while you are trying to guide the student, you may have to highlight such things that you need maybe like under justification, you need to convince someone why should you do A, B, C, D. So without that kind of checklist or what you would equate to a marking scheme, may be difficult later to give a proper, supervision. So having seen some of those things, there will be many, from different sources. I would like now that we go closer to getting a proposal done, and under proposal development, that will guide you. We need guidance on the process, and we'll start by looking at the concept note, and then look at the what we would consider maybe a full proposal. So one of the first things that one may have to do when guiding the research process is really to have the necessary materials, necessary documentation, necessary references, necessary which the student may need to use. A student has just come in the university. Okay, thanks. Now that you have got the internet, you have got a possibility of getting information from there. But in the past, you relied on the library. You will see some, responsible students taking, students to the library, showing them areas where maybe you might find some useful information, although the librarians will do that, but sometimes they may not do that. So there are some key, documents that the supervisor may have to share with the students. Say, you are working on this area. Do you know anything about A, B, C, D? No. Okay, take this one. There is this, there is a policy, there is what and what. Just read through them, and then it will help you in the course of your writing a proposal. And then try to make him or her understand the steps that are involved in writing the proposal, and and which step depend on each one, on which one. And like we say, the current steps provides, emanates from the previous step. So this has to be done. You shouldn't assume that they know. They have done a MSc and what. I have been interacting with a number of my MScs. They spend a lot of time trying to get a research topic. They will be moving, talking to themselves, topic. Where is the topic? Teacher, can you help me with the topic? So really, we shouldn't assume that these people, they can do it so easily. Like I said yesterday, even at PhD level, even having completed MSc and they graduated, yet you find some PhD students, being discontinued because they have failed to write a proposal. And that is very serious. So I think excuse me, I think it is important not to assume that people know what they should be doing. So universities, as it was for the rules and regulations, have guidelines for preparing thesis proposals, and they are possibly on their websites. So staff should consult them, but also students should consult these documents. And I should confess that myself, I had some time, to supervise and say, oh, now, how do we, what's the current, agreement on the way we cite, make citations in the text? Do we use et al with italics or without italics? So things might have changed and the supervisor may not be aware. And if you're not aware, then how do you guide? How do you mark? How do you, suggest improvements? So you may have to get hold of the document and see what is recommended by the investors. Just like the instructions to authors in journals. If you don't have that one, you may not be able to have a paper that will be accepted for publication. So these are what we normally see. There will be introduction, problem statement, justification. In some cases, the problem statement and justification, they are combined. You'll have objectives, literature review, methodology, implementation plan, budget references, and the annex. So this is the main structure of the proposal. Now, apart from the structure, some universities will have limitations of the number of pages that can be written. I know Sokoine University of Agriculture for the MSc, it is 10 pages, and for PhD is 15 pages, double space. So you can imagine for somebody who is not trained for scientific writing, 10 pages or 15 pages, they are not really, enough to put all the ideas that one has. But if it was a kind of a free and unlimited, kind of a document, say 30, 40 pages, it will be very easy for someone to write. So really, writing skill here becomes very important, and I will see at a later stage the issue of actually summarizing. I know there are some experts in summarizing, and that can be done, easily with them, but others, it can be really a problem. But as I mentioned yesterday, with the AI, technology, maybe it is very easy. You have your text of 30 pages, you say, I want it in 3 pages. So it will be done for you. But now the question is, are we doing the learning? Maybe not, and maybe yes. It may be yes, because like in the past, we did calculations by using slide rules and what. And nowadays we have calculators, and we did some analysis of variance, going through all the steps of ANOVA till the end. These days you plug in your values and then you get, the results. So I don't know. I'm saying yes. We might require to go through the traditional ways of doing things. But if you have some ways of simplifying things, why not? Because things can be done very fast. Just like now we spend maybe 10 minutes to present something on PowerPoint than it was before, where we'd use maybe 1 hour writing on the green or blackboard, erasing and then writing again. So sometimes we have to take advantage of new developments. Anyway, that remains, for decision makers and to determine what should be done. Just to emphasize on those who are doing doctoral studies, like I said in the beginning, we see them as really people who are already advanced and therefore have a lot of expectations from them. So they should be expected to address, socio-economic, professional education, and the general needs. To be called a doctor, it means people really see that you are learned. So if you are a PhD and then you can't really deal with issues at the level that maybe you are expected, then people get doubtful whether what it is. That's why there have been debates in some places. I know in Tanzania there have been a lot of debates. People getting PhD say, "How do you get this PhD?" Oh, la, la, la. But okay, but also amongst ourselves, say you got a PhD from Hungary, you got a PhD from China, PhD from UK. All these things, come in. But what is important is that you should actually play your part as somebody who has attained a certain level of training. So one would be generating some information that will contribute to national, even regional, and even global development. So the issue of originality of research becomes very important. You know, you work on a subject that is challenging. If something is set forward, analysis of sugar content in fruits, I mean, what kind of challenge are you really, you're trying to address? So at PhD level, at doctoral level, you know, a problem that you want to deal with, and therefore the proposal that you want to develop must be really having something. That is what really makes some students, you know, get discontinued, because really you don't see something, you know, that is really contributing to knowledge that one is proposing. But such cases then as a supervisor or a team of supervisors, you need to try to advise him or her. One may have to change the topic. He or she may come up with a topic that really doesn't sound, you know, fit for PhD. So as a instructor, also as a supervisor, you may have to think about, you know, guide him. There are many sources of ideas that can be, you know, can be used to develop proposals, and they will see some of them. So before we go into the main research proposals, we need to think about, you know, a research concept note. Many times, even in researches, local, regional, international calls, they always, you know, ask for a concept note, which, like you said yesterday, it could be a 2-page thing, or it could be long. If it is structured, maybe in a form to be filled, it could be long depending on the one who is making a call. But for academics, some universities will require, you know, different length of pay, you know, concept note. But if whatever the case, a concept note should be short, and it is a brief outline of the project that you have in mind. So you have in mind a project that you want to do. So you want to share with someone very briefly. It's like you are given maybe 3 minutes. Can you tell us about, you know, your idea? So that is what the concept note constitutes. So it is a requisite or required before the full proposal development. And if one had, say, in calls for proposals, you send in the concept notes, 200 of them, but they'll screen them and maybe end up with a 50, and then 50s will be invited to write full proposal, because some of the ideas or what you want to do may not fit in within the a particular maybe you know, organization's interest. And there are cases where, you know, people work on themes. In some universities, you have teams of researchers working on some themes. So the concept note helps to determine whether whatever you are proposing is within, you know, within the theme that is that exists. So it will normally consist the essential parts of the proposal. It will have an introduction, background. Sometimes background, introduction, they are, you know, taken as one and the same, but there will be proposed objectives, and then there will be expected results. If you are doing a particular, you know, project, what kind of results are you expecting? And of course, eventually, as you write, maybe you'll talk about the significance of the results. And then there could be a budget overview. But under objectives, you may be asked to write, you know, a very brief, you know, approach or methodology of how you'll be executing your, you know, your idea. So all those things, you know, whatever you want to put in, it must show or convince whoever is reading the, you know, the concept to see that it is something that is, you know, interesting and worth undertaking. So we will not go into the details of each of the section, because they are the same things that appear in the full proposal. So as we look at some of the stages in full proposal, writing will be touching on these things. But I wanted to show that, it is basically a full proposal condensed, say, to 2 or 3 pages, depending on the demand by the university or by the donor. So as we think about proposal writing, the first part, which one may have to have in mind, is the getting an idea that you want to work on. So the project idea. And this one, for the students, I know it is always challenging. I mentioned about, students spending lots of time trying to get the title, the topic. It becomes very, very difficult. So one can, think about, where can we get, the ideas? You need to ask the students, what kind of idea, and they try to read his or her mind, what is the kind of thinking that she has. And the problem is now, we think about the idea, but we haven't, explored the world, explored, the literature to see what kind of issues are there. So the question is, what is the source of research project idea? And there are several sources. I have just, indicated here 5 of them. One is through the literature review. When you read literature, you know things. You know what is happening. You know what are the problems. You know what are the challenges. You know what people are doing about the problems, and where is everybody, leading. Okay, so literature review is very important, and it's unfortunate that even amongst us who call themselves maybe who have worked on some of these things, there is a call for proposal. So you write it, and you didn't have time to go through the literature, but maybe because of your experience, knowing the existing challenges, you write a proposal. But otherwise, you would need to spend, a lot of time on literature review. But for the students in the universities, a lot of work has been done on various aspects, maybe some relating to the idea that you may be thinking about. If you go through the theses and dissertations and whatever reports, you'll find in most cases at the end, you'll have a section on recommendations for further work. So it means it is something that remains, it was not done, but the authors think it was very important. So you can pick from there and continue the work so that you get maybe to a complete set of results which can be, used. So reading through those, documents will be very, very helpful. And it will give a student, less challenge in actually developing the idea, because the idea is already there, the problem has been formulated, but again, you want to develop it further. You read conference and workshop proceedings. There will be conferences that are called around a certain theme, around a certain problem. So there will be, results, discussions, and what you'll get something out of it, and which is most likely to be current, because workshops, conferences don't address, very old issues, they're current issues. And then they'll tell you if it is a global or regional, it will tell you already, what is happening around the region or, around the world. And then you pick it from there. So even the literature review will be much easier. You can join research groups, work on various themes. They will have the agendas, and since resources are always limited, they will not complete all the agenda. So you might also pick up something from there if it is relevant and useful. You can also visit communities, marginalized communities, and try to pick problems, see whether they have been addressed and how, and then try to research and find, way of doing it better. So through all these kind of explorations, you may not miss, or a student may not miss an idea. And then you can also guide him or her, because one can come up with an idea saying, no, this has already been done. And this one was done this, and maybe now you can think about way of doing it differently or building something from there. Now you have an idea, but you want to zero in, come to what kind of topic. So there are several considerations that one may have to think about. Capability and appropriateness of doing that, doing that topic. Is the topic interesting? It could be interesting to the supervisor or somebody else, like we said in the case where one fits in. And if someone picks something that is of interest to him or her, he'll have a lot of effort, and they'll be enthusiastic to work on it. Unlike where you are doing it for somebody else. Does the student already know a lot about a topic? One can ask whether what kind of knowledge he or she does, she does have on the topic. Can he cope with the topic in all dimensions? We know some topics are maybe challenging, very challenging, and the time may not be available, and the resources and all that. So one may have to see whether it will be possible to cope. And by the way, many students, they have the tendency, or young researchers have tendency to try to do a lot of things. So many objectives when they cannot be accomplished. Are the resources available? That one also is important. You don't want to get to the middle of the research and the funds are not available, then you are stuck. How about availability of information?
Hello.
That may help us.
Hello, Professor.
Yes, please.
Yes, there's a concern here. When you're doing a literature review,
Yes, please.
Does it need to come first before you have a topic, or you need to identify a topic or an area before? So how should we go about that?
Ideally, thank you for the question. Ideally, literature reviews means having knowledge about a subject. So if you don't have any knowledge about what is happening, then you get it from literature. And the literature, we know it is normally written, but talking to people, knowing what is happening is also literature, kind of, not really a written thing, but ideally you need to have information, and that is literature. Because you can have a topic trying to address a given problem, and when now you go further, you discover that, oh, this has already been done in Malaysia. Then you have wasted, your effort. But in practice, like I said, many of us start working on something and then work back, try to get some information, which is wrong. Thank you. The issue of availability of information, that one should also be considered, and the supervisor has a role to play. I know when I was doing my PhD, maybe my supervisor did not do enough on this one. I chose a topic to work on improvement of traditional sorghum beer manufacturing. And what pushed me to do that was where I come from, our people there depended, and they still depend on local beer brewing to earn their living. That's part of their livelihood. And I would see all the way from the time I was a small child, my mother asking me to climb up the kitchen house, get sorghum, bring it down, beat it, get grain, and then soak it in water with ash, then cover it with banana leaves for 4 days, and then dry it in the sun, and then grind it in a coarse way, not fine, and then pour hot water, work it out into a ugali type, and then leave it to cool, transfer it into a pot, add water, and then do whatever she was doing, and then wait for the third day, the beer was ready. And she got money out of it. And I will we could maybe go to school, go to school or buy food or whatever. So I wondered, what really goes on. I wanted to understand, why does mother do what she does, like all other mothers in the area? And is there any scientific basis for whatever is being done? So I asked myself, about the literature, production of sorghum beer, traditional one, and what. So it was very difficult. So my professor, I did my studies in Belgium, the land of beer. And so I went through the literature, could not find anything talking about sorghum beer, because to the West, beer is from barley and whatever adjuncts that you use. So I later on somehow in the Journal of Science, Agriculture and something, I found a publication of 1947, which was an MSc thesis in South Africa. And so I said to my professor at that time, South Africa was restricted, and for Tanzania, we're not supposed to communicate in any way with South Africa. So I asked my professor, how do I get, this thesis? Because if I get it, maybe I'll have some references, and then I'll go for further, work. Initially, it was very difficult, but later on, he helped. But I spent almost 6 months trying to get literature, methods of analysis of art, and it was very difficult. But later on, when I got it, I said, I have really, hit, the bull. So I got that reference, and out of that reference, I got more references. I got to know about the Burukutu beer in Nigeria and other things. So I could build, a pile of information, and from there, I started working. So availability of information is very important. If you don't have, then you are almost lost. So my 6 months that was lost would have not been lost if I had some information, maybe being guided by the supervisor. But then again, the supervisor, when I used to talk about sorghum beer, you would wonder what is that kind of thing. And every time there were Zungus in the lab, they would ask, this guy, will he manage PhD and what? Sorghum beer, what is it? But eventually, after 4 years, I was able to put up something that was really, worth maybe having a PhD. So information is very important, and we shouldn't assume again, like I said, that PhD or MSc, they know where and what to do. So whatever you have in your own office or in other, whatever sources, or referring them to other instructors, that would be helpful. Again, whether the topic is appropriate for the degree, you are doing food sciences, now you want to work on cactus, used in maybe treating some cow diseases, you see, and you are in food science. So really you should have something that is closely related to your area of specialization, which in the end, at the conclusion of your studies, will help you in your, in your future career. So that also will build you in that particular career as being a specialized person. I know in our situations, maybe in the past, I believe even now, like in the beginning, when we started some disciplines like food science and technology was very new, maybe in East Africa. So there were no graduates in food science and technology, but maybe agriculture with some areas. So we didn't have, people in these areas. So at the end, one would want to be identified in some area, but because of the prevailing circumstances and for getting, financial resources, today you get a project on honey, you are there. Tomorrow there is a project on soils, whatever nitrogen, you are there. So in the end, you don't have really a specialized area. Hence, I would say that you need to get a topic that is really within your area of studies, and also for your career needs. Again, does it agree with the course regulations. The course might also specify, what kind of areas are we really focusing on, and therefore this is it's very important to have that in consideration. So really, getting the idea and eventually getting the topic very key, and you might have to spend good time on that one, because after getting it right, then the other things will follow more easily. So once we have the idea and the topic, the next thing maybe the supervisor would want to know what the title, because the head of department or Senate would want to know the titles of your students which have been approved. So that is already, enough work and important work to get the title that goes to Senate approved. So you need to get it right, but as we'll see later, title is not permanent. You may have it now, and later on you move it or change it, modify it a bit to suit whatever you have done. So the title tells a lot. It summarizes the main idea or ideas of your study. So in formulating, coining the title, you must make sure that when somebody reads the title, gets a quick idea of what you want to do. And few words, some universities, they have put a standard that they should not exceed so many words. At Second University of Agriculture, you have not more than 20 words, and that can be a challenge. One has an idea that fits into a paragraph. Now trying to cut it down to 20 can be a problem. So that also requires, skills, and all that. So while you try to condense it to 20 words or less, then you see that, you are not really losing, the purpose of the content of the paper. So it's very essential to have a good title, because it captures, the reader's attention. Many times, like, even in shopping, as where packaging attracts the attention of the consumer. So even, in readings, one would scan through and say, oh, this one is more interesting. So it is very important to have it, correctly, coined, so that people can be attracted and to be able to read it, or even, work on it. So it draws attention to the research problem being investigated. It will tell in a way. And then, like I said, you have a title that is approved at that particular moment, at the beginning. And in the end, you might find that you have introduced something, or did a treatment of results that requires that maybe the title to be changed a bit. And that one is acceptable, though not really always, encountered. I just, thought it was good to have, some examples, but of good titles, or acceptable titles rather. So we are saying few words, but then tell about maybe what you want to get, the problem and all that. So like, effect of mixing speed on ice cream quality. To me, it appears to be clear. This person seems to be telling that the issue of mixing speed is not determined, but also, the mixing speed is not determined, but its effect on the ice cream quality is not, known. So it's like your quality varies, quality of ice cream varies with the mixing speed. And if we don't know about the optimum mixing speed, then we may have to determine various levels of mixing speed and eventually relate them to quality characteristics of the ice cream, and eventually come up with the recommended or practical mixing speed. One other type of title would be relationship between hemoglobin concentration and the fresh quality characteristics. It is likely that the presence of hemoglobin affects, pork quality, but how they relate, it is not, clear. So there is a problem of establishing the relationship, and therefore such a topic can be, can be proposed. Again, simple, titles. I know there are complicated titles, but effect of fat content on the quality of ice cream, the level of fat that is in milk, that will, how will it determine the quality of ice cream? That also could be a kind of topic or title. Effect of sweetness on ice cream characteristics, sweeteners on ice cream. There are several sweeteners that can be used, artificial sweeteners, natural, honey, and other materials. So how do they affect? Maybe this person is interested to find which one is more cost effective, which one is more acceptable, and therefore we could have such a title. You have effect of particle size on, say, reconstitutability of composite flour. You have composite flours formulated differently by using different ingredients. And maybe when you try to mix composite flour with water, they don't, the particles don't work easily and form a uniform, mixture, porridge, whatever. So you want maybe to determine which particle size is appropriate for, good, reconstitutability. So such kind of, titles could be used. These are simple type of titles. There are others which are complicated, but they should be guided by looking at, what are they addressing? If somebody reads this one, would it be interesting and all that? So we have the title for the project. The next thing, apart from the authors and what and affiliations, there will be an introduction. You are introducing your research proposal, and many times supervisors, ask students, can you bring your title and introduction and maybe objectives? So students will struggle up and down, try to get, how to formulate the introduction and what. Many times I know students have got a lot of things to do, and especially postgraduate students, they're not, at the university just for learning. They even have some small businesses around. They have got some temporary jobs which they can do online. So they have a lot of things to do. But as a supervisor, you need to make sure that they also get the formulation of the introduction, and be able to actually show that they have those essential components of the introduction, which will make the reader understand. So within the introduction part, that's really a summary of what you want to do, and try to show the importance of the subject that you want to deal on. So it is very, very important that it is really well, structured. So as a reader, as a supervisor, whoever is reading it, the introduction will provide a reader with a broad overview of a problem in context. I mean, you don't research on something that has no problem. It is not a problem. So one should see that there is a problem that you want to work on, although at a later stage, in the case of proposing a thesis, you need to have a separate section on objectives or the problem statements. So the introduction should be designed to create interest in the reader about the topic and the proposal. I'm sure you have experienced this. You read something and then in the middle you stop, go for another thing. So it is because the introduction does not really, attract you to continue reading. it should expose what you want to do.
Excuse me, Professor.
Yes, please.
Sorry for taking you back again.
No problem.
You've mentioned topic. Now, it reminds me of the previous section, that is the title. You see. So
Sorry?
how can you differentiate a topic and then a title?
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. The topic is more broader. It's like a theme and sub-themes. So that you have, we started with an idea, then you have an area that you want to work on, and I will see maybe later through some examples. And then the title is really a structured, statement that tells about, what will be expected in the work that you are doing. But the topic is more broader than than the title. Although in some cases, one can kind of have topic and a title being considered as one and the same. But otherwise, it is the topic is more broader at a higher level or generalized than the title that you have, because you will be judged or assessed based on the title that you have, and not really the topic as we may think. We may think broadly. So creating an interest to the reader is very important. So it should expose what you want to do, what necessitates the study, and your passion for the topic. I did mention that the introduction is like a summary of what you want to do. It will have literature review. It will have your problem statement. It will have your justification, kind of. It will also tell you about the significance of that study. And at the end, before the significance, maybe you even have the aim of the study. So one knows really what you intend to do. Then one can continue, looking at the next, the subsequent, stages or steps. Otherwise, from the introduction, one can determine whether he wants to continue reading or not, and show how it should show show who has interest in the study, show who has the interest in the study, starting with the global level, followed by regional, and zeroing in to local country level. So you are trying to show the importance of the subject that you are working on. So you want first to say, globally, this is perceived to be, or it is really a serious problem. So if it is something of a global concern, for sure it is something worth working on. But if it is something for a village, it may not be something really of interest to somebody in Ukraine or wherever else. So you start with the global perspectives, you show it. There is a serious case of malnutrition worldwide. Oh. And then you zero into the regional. Maybe you are saying now in Africa, the problem is more felt than in the other continents and all that. Okay. How about in Uganda? 70% of the children are affected by this and this. So really, whoever reads, he or she will be convinced that this is really something worth reading, worth working on. And eventually, if you are trying to propose to get some money, one can say, and all this kind of thing. So you need to indicate, the kind of interest, the kind of concern that other people have. And then you want to show how the research that you're going to do will add on to the knowledge, practice, and the policy in the area. So that kind of tells about the significance of the study data, how important it is. So that is really very briefly on the part of the introduction. If those are captured somehow, somebody will get an idea. You can add a number of things and the literature that you put in. Sometimes you put in, okay, it's a global problem. Then you say the reference is 1963. I mean, it doesn't really, fit there. If it was a problem in 1963, now we have more than 50 years or 40 years, that may not be a problem anymore. So the references must also be considered, yeah. Excuse me, there is an interruption. I just want to draw. Excuse me, there was somebody interrupting. I just wanted to get things right. So, having introduced your subject in many structures of the thesis, there will be the issue of writing a statement of the problem. So, in stating the problem, you need to answer the question, what research problem are you trying to investigate? Again, this is also another challenging area. Students, get problems to state the problem, but also sometimes they confuse it with the justification. So once you have guidance to select a general topic, and based on the literature, then you need to narrow the problem statement based on the topic that you have. So, for instance, okay, excuse me, just a minute, yeah. Okay. I think there is a confusion of the slides. I'm sorry. Let me just, go back at the section on introduction. Yeah, we were talking about the topic area, and this one refers also to the question that Vincent asked. They're trying to get the difference between the topic and the title, but I did mention about that the topic is more general and broader than the title that is structured. So let me just come here and talk about if say you have a topic and the general topic is about micronutrient nutrition. I hope every participant here is conversant about macronutrients, the zinc, the iron, the vitamin A, etc. It's a global concern that there is micronutrient malnutrition. So you could now narrow it down the topic to intake of zinc and iron by adolescents. So micronutrient nutrition is very broad, and it has a lot of areas that one could work on. But since now we want to get closer to what we want actually to do, you can now choose one amongst all possibilities of work that can be done under micronutrient nutrition and talk about intake of zinc and iron by adolescents. That could constitute a title. That could be closer to a title because it is okay, as we'll see later when we come to the objectives, the quality, this quality of the objectives. Here you are more specific. You're talking about zinc, you're talking about iron, and the intake by adolescents. If you are talking about risk analysis, say, of pesticide residues in tomato, risk analysis of pesticide residues in tomato. Risk analysis has a lot of issues to deal with. We are talking about the 3 components: risk assessment, risk management, and the communication. We are talking about so many things that go into it, but you could narrow it down to say one of the stages in risk assessment: exposure of fresh tomato to consumer, exposure of fresh tomato consumers to organophosphorus insecticides. That one has been narrowed down, and that one could constitute the title of research. So I think I lost some materials on the statement of the problem, but let me say that under the statement of the problem, you want to actually state what problem are you dealing with. Picking from here, the problem could be again micronutrient nutrition, that there is a problem of micronutrient nutrition, and it has been there for quite some time, and it affects a lot of people, or maybe children, and this has been existing for quite some time, and this affects maybe brain development, affects your height, stunting, it affects something, and all this kind of thing. So you are trying to show that there is a real problem, and it is recognized by the government, and maybe you indicate how much maybe the government spends money on this, yet there is, for the past 10 years, the reduction of this problem has been maybe 4%. So we need really to work on it, and that one, so you are really exposing that it is a problem in the country, and the people appreciate that it is a problem. So closely related to the problem, having stated the problem, you need now to justify why should you carry out the study. So you need to guide students on justification of carrying out the study, and there will be some elements that you'll be looking for in a way of justifying. So some of the things that I have indicated here, what's the size of the problem? What is affected? So if it is a micronutrient malnutrition, and you are saying in one village in Tanzania, there is this kind of problem, and then you want to spend 4 years researching on it, and you want to spend 200 million shillings working on it, I don't think that kind of resources, time, and money really justified on such a problem, because maybe you have 20 people in that village, but if there are so many people, give figures, and who is affected, then you can justify working with the project and spending money. But again, what is known about the problem that you are justifying? So you need to indicate what has been done. Yes, there is a problem. You need to actually outline what efforts have been undertaken by government, through research and all that. And so what has been achieved? And then you will, knowing the kind of approaches that can solve the problems from literature, then you would be able to say what remains to be done, or what has not been done. So there will be a number of things that may not have been done, which you may also get from the recommendations of the thesis and what. Once you know what has been done, then you can't do all those that have not been done. So you choose what you can address, that you are trying to fill part of the gap. So, and then once you say this is what I have to do for this and other reason, then you can indicate that if I do this, this is the kind of impact or implication of the study to have, the significance of the study. So with those kind of elements having been addressed, then you are able to justify or convince someone. Because if you don't show what people have done, for instance, they have done zinc and iron, but they didn't do vitamin A. So I'm doing vitamin A. So one will know that either you are doing what you know. Otherwise, you might do vitamin A, and you find that it was done already by someone. So that one can be a means of convincing someone to do something. The issue of next one will be having justified. Then you need to say, okay, now since this is the situation, the objective of my study will be to do ABC. So, and a research objective, again, is a subject that can take hours for discussion, and people have been trained on objectives for some time. But it is a concrete statement describing what the research is trying to achieve. What are you trying to achieve, in your investigation? And we all now know that the issue of SMART, that the objective should be specific, not general. Quality, what is quality? Quality must be broken down. Is it color? Is it consistency? Is it sweetness, whatever? It must be measurable. Can you check from point A to point B, what kind of change is it, coming up with? Is it attainable within the maybe specified time or within the existing means of, measurement? Is it realistic? And what kind of time, time bound? Some formulation of the objectives are really, well structured, that they take into account and all these things to indicate that really what you want to achieve can be really attainable in a given specified time. So it should be relevant, feasible, logical, observable, unequivocal, and measurable. Really, it must be clear and a lot of time is required really to work on the objectives, because once you fail to come up with good objectives, then in the end, you might also having problems, with the methodology that you want to use. We may look at the characteristics of a good objective. It should be closely related to the problem statement. Summarize what you hope will be achieved. Example, if the problem identified is low utilization of antenatal care services, care before the pregnant woman delivers, the general objective of the study could be to identify the reasons for the low uptake. We're talking about care services, antenatal, going to the clinic and all that. So the problem identified is the low utilization. So what objective do I have, in this one? So the general one would be to identify the reasons for the low uptake, the low utilization of the services. So you are identifying. Now, if you identify the reasons for low uptake, the use of that kind of study, it will lead to find ways of improving it. Maybe timing of services, improve, change time, and all that kind. So it is always recommended that we state objectives using verbs, action verbs, to assess, to determine, to verify, not to understand, to study, to understand. How do you measure understanding? You may have to give a test or what. So having done the specific objective, you need to guide on the coming up with the specific objectives. Specific as the English word, talks us about specific is being more, very, very having, concrete kind of action that you will do. So break down the general objective into smaller, logically connected parts that systematically address various aspects of the problem. Just to share some examples, this is one of the long objective, so that you can break it into specific ones. For instance, this one, the general objective would be to identify factors that affect the acceptability of voluntary counseling and testing services, and to assess community attitudes towards comprehensive care and support for people living with HIV/AIDS. So we are talking about factors and community attitudes. So the specific ones which are easily measurable and all that is to assess the knowledge, attitudes, and the practice of the community towards HIV, etc. Then to identify barriers and the concerns related to VCT, and then to assess the awareness and the perception of the study community regarding comprehensive and support. Now, each of those, when answered, the specific objectives will contribute to actually getting an understanding of the problem. So basically, we are saying once you have the general objective, now you want to see what kind of factors contribute to that general objective, which has been coined based on the problem, which, if put together, will give you a general understanding of the situation. So it's very important. And here, students want to have so many specific objectives, and sometimes they don't follow the SMART rule, and therefore this is where they need to be guided. We move on to the literature review. So the literature review shows how your approach to research, the approach to research builds on existing research. So people have done research all over the world, all over the region, and you are coming up with, we should link to what has been done. People worked on this one. People used these methods, will also use this approach. So it helps him identify methodological and the design issues in studies similar to his own, introduce him to measurement tools and others have used effectively, helps him interpret results, findings, and ties results to his work to those who have worked before him. So you'll hear a literature review, maybe a section on methodology or methods used. Someone used this kind of method, but it had this kind of weakness. And this other one used this kind of method, it had this weakness. And all this, so the method now you are choosing takes into account of the experience of the other people, so that yours now is somewhere maybe at a better level than the ones that you used. So you don't just come up with, and maybe it may not link to previous people's works. But again, you talk about maybe vitamin A in foods, availability, then you make a review, you show how other people have dealt with such a subject. They did this and it did not work and all that and work. So you are also trying to get something that may contribute and add to whatever, is being done. So the issue of originality and all that will come in at that. Yeah. So guidance on reviewing literature. Experience shows that different understanding of literature review. An undergraduate and MA student, unless guided, will cut and paste paragraphs, which may constitute to plagiarism. Maybe they don't know about literature review, what it is. That some MSc and even some PhD students will cut and paste, statements. So because of this situation, and nobody has guided them, just tell them literature review. What do we do? So students should be guided to read different sources on a given topic, read the entire paragraphs, and pick up an idea, and then rephrase or paraphrase it, and write in own words. That can be done, but it is challenging if the writing skill again is a problem, the English is a problem, then it can be a problem. So if it is a problem, then try to find out how you can, help him. So reading widely, using different search engines, you can get ideas. But again, I'm afraid with the AI technology, maybe things can be done, and you'll see this is an A student, when actually it was done by an A technology. The issue of research, design, and the methodology, that's another problem area. Basically, it is the process always intends to execute the entire research project. So telling what will be done to make sure that the project is implemented. And I know some people, I'm not very good in statistics, but I know some people who are obsessed with the statistics. They consider research methodology must have a long equation. Y is equal to ij plus pk plus what and all these kind of things to describe what will be done, not knowing that is just part of maybe one way of analyzing a certain set of data, but not everything. But basically, we are saying it includes, the details that tells the process, the site, the study site, the sampling, the handling of samples, if it is a lab work, handling of data, how will they be analyzed and all that. So it includes as much data as possible, all the aspects where he plans to tackle different steps like data collection, acceptable official methods and procedures, data and statistical analysis, participant examinations and observations, measurement instruments and procedures, subjects and the sample sizes using the agreeable procedures. How do you take the sample size? What procedure do you use? And all that. So all these, you see, it's a lot of work and students need guidance. On the plan of activities and implementation, basically in the proposal, you have a page or pages where you have activities and the time to implement year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, maybe broken into quarters or months, indicate like proposal development maybe during month 1 and 9, proposal presentation maybe during the month. So proposal revision, if there's comments, proposal approval, ethical clearance, purchase of reagents, etc., etc. So this one will form a basis actually for the supervisor to actually monitor what is going on. And then definitely at the end, there will be a proposal defense in the department or at whatever level. So they need to be guided in the preparation of presentation, layout and the content, quality of slides, timekeeping, skill of responding to comments, because they also be graded, incorporation of corrections based on comments, and marking criteria. Oh, hello? Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, I see. My screen is,
Hello. Okay.
I can't see anything on my screen.
Oh, sorry for that.
On this end, you're okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
we haven't noticed any difference. We are seeing you. Your slides are being seen.
It happened also yesterday. It happened also yesterday. I see it is blinking. I don't know what is. Maybe it's the issue of our networks. Okay.
Okay. But on our end, we're okay.
They're okay.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
If you're able to see your slides,
yeah,
you can just carry on because we can see them and we can see you.
Okay. Let me just let me do this. Oh, I think there's a problem with my computer. Oh, just a minute.
Okay.
Yeah. Halo. Naangaika screen yangu inanisumbua. Haya. Ngoja natafuta.
Participants, just want to thank you for your patience. We're experiencing a small problem in linking up with the presenter, and he's making efforts to resolve it. So I'll just urge you to be a little patient, and hopefully the problem will be resolved soon. Participants, if you're still there, I think as we wait for
We are
Professor
there.
Tisekwa, yeah, we are
Yes,
waiting
we are
for
there.
Professor Tisekwa to resolve his technical issues. It's being suggested that maybe we have a discussion. We have a discussion on some of the issues that have been raised. And I'm looking at the chat and I can see some people have commented or raised some issues. I can see, for example, Remi Shiundu responded to the issue of having expected results, I think, in the proposal, and he's saying something about expected results may or may not be confirmed at the end of the research. So he's probably wondering why they should be included in the proposal. Do people have any reaction to this? I think we can open it up and discuss it and see what the different opinions are on this issue. Remy, are you there?
Sir, yes, I'm there.
Yes, you're the one who raised the issue. Maybe you can.
I think someone else raised and argued when you are presenting the concept note.
Yes.
That in the concept note, there is no need for expected results. And my response was, it was in order that the expected results can be put in the concept note.
Okay.
Because there were two people arguing that if the expected results are there, then you are preempting the research. I was advising them that no, expected results does not mean that you already know the results. It could be, the meaning of expected results in the concept note is that they may be at the end confirmed or not be confirmed.
Okay, it appears that...
yes, so I was supporting the concept note presented by the professor.
Yes.
What I only added was that perhaps the concept note could also include the methods or the methodology of that research. Or sometimes methodology is problematic.
Okay, Professor Biarugaba seems to have some comment on that one. Unmute and let us hear what you have to say.
Thank you, Patrick, for filling in this gap. Unexpected results, naturally we have three forms of research. Exploratory research, which is very expensive and not in our reach. Confirmatory research, which Professor Tsekwa has exhaustively talked about in terms of developing an idea. And the idea is a long-term idea, like we had his experience on sorghum. And then explanatory research that goes along unanswered questions and recommendations of previous researches. So when you gain the interest in recommendations of previous work done, particularly at PhD, you need to coin expected results, because we do know and take it that we have internalized the subjects that were previously done. You are in a position to answer the remaining unaccomplished work. And when you predict, you put your research on a good track record as you make a checklist. I could see in some of the chart that people wanted a SWOT analysis so that, and a checklist, so that every other step as you do research and as you meet your supervisor and as you give seminars, actually what lacks in most of our universities, we need to have regular dissemination seminars of how far students have gone at any graduate reading level. And that beefs up the track record onto the formation to the expected results. If need be, you discard them if you are not getting it. Therefore, let us agree to disagree that expected results is a sentence paramount to be in the concept note, in the short proposal, and final proposal. I submit.
Okay. Professor Chiseko, are you back? Professor Chiseko, can you hear?
He is muted.
Yeah, Professor Chiseko, can you unmute your mic, please?
Yeah. Hello. Hello. Can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, we
Yes,
can
Yes.
hear
I
you.
can hear you as well.
Yeah, but Patrick is muted now. Okay.
Yeah, so Prof, you can hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
you can hear.
while we were waiting for you to reconnect,
Yes,
we
please.
just had a brief discussion on the issue of expected results in the concept note, in the proposal, and so on and so forth. But I'm
Yes.
sure maybe later on you'll touch again on the issue, when you open up the floor for discussion. But I think you can carry on now from where you had left off. Everything seems to be
Yes.
okay now. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, and sorry for the technology
No,
business.
it's understandable.
So we have the issue of list of activities to be undertaken and the timing for the execution of the project. This, I said, was an important guide for the supervisor to check whether what has been planned is timely done, and if there are any problems, then some kind of corrective action should be taken so that everything goes as planned. So having completed the proposal, which will of course include the budget and source of money and the references, then time will come for the defense of the proposal, mainly with the aim of getting contributions from other scientists on whether the proposal is workable, and if there are areas that requires improvement. So you need to guide the supervisor, the supervisee on all those things that I mentioned before we went for break. We had some problems. So I thought maybe we should include, one slide about, the issue of summarizing text, summarizing whatever in proposal writing. As I mentioned before, there could be some page restrictions, and therefore summarizing is very important. And one should be, be guided on how to summarize. I know, like in the case of research methodologies are supposed to be complete and well detailed. But again, if you have got restriction of pages, you need to find ways of being able to summarize. So it is a challenging, area for many students. And so one of the things that one should consider is to really avoid repetition. There's a tendency to have a repetition of things that are said in the same document. So one can find a way of cutting them down and make reference to details elsewhere. For instance, in methods where you are trying to describe how to grow maize, and the way you will do it, you'll be doing it is the way somebody else did it. So instead of going through the same process, if a references can be traced, then you indicate that the process will follow what somebody did, unless there are some changes or modifications that have to be done. So again, one thing that is maybe a general guide is that when you are trying to condense or summarize your results, you may have to ask yourself whether by omitting a certain text or sentence or whatever, are you losing anything needed for the reader's understanding? If the answer is no, then you just remove it because it doesn't make add any value. So if you remove it, for instance, I'm just giving an example like these two sentences. I'm really excited about the opportunity. 7 words, but then if you say the opportunity interests me, 4 words, you're almost saying the same thing. So, and cutting down, 3 words. So students should be guided to read extensively publications in journals or publications related to the work that they are doing. They learn something there to see the way other people do things. Whatever we are doing now, it was not our own creation, but we learned from other people. So that becomes very important. So the issue of monitoring the progress is very important. And this one, like I said, it is based on the plan of implementation. So there are timelines which should be observed, and the supervisor has the duty to make sure that they are observed. And the supervisor can assist the students to see whether whatever is planned is really realistic, that can be achieved. And all that. Think about all other factors like if it is agricultural project, about the rains, possibilities of failure, etc., etc. And what kind of measures should be taken should something, should it fail? So that becomes very important, and that's where the supervisor also needs to play an important role. Data analysis, the students should be guided on the use of approved methods or techniques of analysis. Because if you use a wrong kind of technique, you might get into wrong conclusions and therefore make the whole work useless. Appropriate data presentation, students have problems in this, pictorial graphs or tables, legibility and all that kind of things. The use of appropriate captions, appropriate font size, etc., etc. Those are things that we shouldn't take for granted that they know them, because even amongst our staff members who prepare for maybe some presentation, we may have some problems. Yeah, basically the focus here was about proposal preparation, but I thought should you put something on thesis writing in the defense? Yesterday we talked about different formats, and therefore those should be observed. But the supervisor should guide the student on requirements for publications, a number of published and submitted papers, structure of the thesis, timing in the submission to meet the graduation dates, involved steps, internal examination, external examination, and a viva voce. So, students should be guided on these guidelines, but also get hold of some theses which were presented before and they defended, see how they look like. Some people they don't do this kind of thing. So students should be guided on this one. The issue of references, yeah, that's another problem area. Many times citations, list references are not compatible. Either you have citations which are not listed as in the list of references, or references not in that. But many times students, if there's an omission, they assume maybe since it is a voluminous work, maybe supervisors will not have a chance to see all the examiners to identify. But if you identify that, if it is identified, then you are penalized. But the problem is that students don't keep record of references that they come across. You see, it is a 4 or 5 years work. So something that was done maybe 5 years ago, and when you are writing maybe during the 4th year, trying to trace this reference becomes a very big problem. And therefore, although with the internet somehow you can be able to trace by Googling something. So it is always good to advise students that every time they come a reference and get some information out of it, they should put it in a notebook not on a loose paper, and maybe have some backup, so that in the end they can get the reference, because it's really, really a very serious issue when somebody has done much of the work but gets a problem with the references. Now the issue of references, of course, every university and public journals and what they have standard format, whether it's alphabetical or numbers that are put in the in the body of the papers, or by the first mention, whatever. So the consistency is very, very important. Even one has to consider where the commas are placed, whether the initials are joined or separated by a full stop, comma. All those are very important. But to a lay person or even a non-academic kind of person, these things to him or her may seem not to matter. Why should I, if I miss a comma, I miss a, but this is a discipline in the discipline way of doing, things in academics. So, and since universities and publications are universal kind of, they should be made in a standard way that everybody can understand. So, guide him on the maintenance of the castle of the list of references. Consider use of one agreed style citations, whether it is chronological, by author, or by numbers, reference lists, alphabetical, whatever. Reference from other sources to be reformatted to your format. Let's pick a reference from somewhere and plug it into his references with a different format and not even caring, how to reformat. Focus on recent references. Generally, these days, people talk about not more than 5 years. But in some cases, you may have a key old reference which cannot be changed. And so you can use that one. And in some cases, some demand a certain proportion, not more than so much percent of, recent years, and maybe a given, proportion is left for old, references. Take care of the misuse of words. You see some people saying, recently, John 19, recently, John 2015. So he's saying it is 8 years ago. Is it recent or what? So recent should really mean recent, although it is not really, you cannot define it very well, but you talk about maybe 2 years or so, you can say it is recent, not just, misuse of these words. And the students may not really realize this one, so they need to be guided in this one. I think we need to look, this is the last part of plagiarism. Yesterday we touched on it, but it is now becoming very important. So this is representing work or ideas from another resource, another source as your own, with or without consent of the original author, by incorporating it to your work without full acknowledgement. So it doesn't cost much to acknowledge someone, either by reference, but sometimes you may have to get a really written, document, of consent that somebody has agreed that you use, these days, even in surveys, whenever, they take pictures or whatever, they give you a small paper to write, so that you agree that, your picture, your photo can be used, in publications or in other places. So under the examination regulations, intentional or reckless plagiarism is a disciplinary offense. One can be disciplined. Forms of plagiarism, issues of verbatim or word for word quotation with the clear acknowledgement is also, word for word without clear acknowledgement. Cutting and pasting from the internet without clear acknowledgement also can constitute, plagiarism. Paraphrasing in some cases, you have paraphrased, but actually the idea is somebody's idea. Collusion and, unauthorized collaboration of students, failure to attribute assistance received. So, somebody can, students can work together, or somebody help somebody else without you actually using on acknowledging. Inaccurate citation, you have to cite correctly. Failure to acknowledge assistance. These days, it is almost mandatory in publication to indicate what kind of assistance you got from whom. Use of material written by professional agencies or other persons, that also must be acknowledged. Auto plagiarism, do not submit work for assessment that you have already submitted. Some people, it happens in universities, especially maybe at undergraduates or what, people go around and then pick a certain report that was done several years ago, and he or she submits, or even changes a few things, like the example I gave yesterday of somebody who reproduced our paper and just changed the names. So those are issues of plagiarism. Yeah, we talked about the AI technology, and I came across, this tool, Tultini. which can help you do a lot of things. And so since, although we say plagiarism is not accepted, but in some cases there are provisions which there is no way maybe avoiding it. So generally it is said that for original paper, you aim at zero plagiarism. Sometimes it is done unintentionally, but sometimes unknowingly also, but sometimes intentionally. So it is said that I got it from the web that most journals allow up to 15%, and for chapter in a book, 55%, in the thesis, 10%. So Korean University of Agriculture allows 30% of plagiarism. Actually, I should say allows 30% of mistakes, but really it is allowed for 30% plagiarism using the checkers that is used. Okay, we have several software. Some are, they just check, others are helpful. It could tell whether or not your text contains duplicate content and therefore alert you. But also highlight passages that require citations and provides resources you need to properly credit your sources, so it can be helpful. Some, plagiarism checkers are very powerful, have writing enhancement, like this one, I saw it in the internet. Grammarly's PC will tell you, grammar and spelling, which could be helpful, and the word choice. I know some students, they may have problems with language, grammar. So if you can get, a tool to help you, that is fine, and that will help you to enhance your work. So, ladies and gentlemen, with the interruption that we had, I see we don't have much time, but we have at least planned half an hour to have some discussion on this presentation and on the subject in general, so that we can realize, better supervision and better, students and better, institutions. So let us spend a few minutes to get some comments, questions on various issues. Karibu.
Yeah,
we'll do
Prof,
like yesterday.
I just wanted to let you know,
yes,
that we are willing to allow time, but not beyond 11:45. I understand we started a bit late, and then we've had this small hitch. On our side, we are ready to go on until around 11:45. I hope it is okay with the participants and everybody else. So it's okay. Yeah, we carry on.
Okay, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Yes, it's okay.
Who is going to be the first one?
Thank you, Professor. Thank you for the presentation. It is quite very interesting. But the presentation tickled my mind regarding joint supervision. When you have 2 supervisors or even 3, so what should be the best approach to doing that? Is it a joint meeting where you can interact with the student? One supervisor gives comment, another one gives also comment, then at the end, you come to a common argument. Or another supervisor goes with a student up to some point, then hand over a student to another supervisor. I don't know the sequence. What is the sequence to you? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think this one we can discuss with everybody in this training. But as you have put it, really, there are various ways of handling and you don't find guidelines how to do it. So you are allocated maybe 3 supervisors, and normally they would identify the main supervisor, so who would be like a coordinator of the entire supervision. because of the commitment and maybe interest of different supervisors, some supervisors will take a lot of keen interest in actually making comments or assisting students in the proposal. And you will see that if the interested supervisor has, looks at the document first and uses track changes to make some comments, the next, and then, okay, they are shared because once maybe you have made some comments, the other supervisors will see them, and they would be expected also to contribute. In some cases, the others may not do much because they would think the first one who has done it has done, a good job. So that one becomes also creates also some challenges because you never know, this other person might have, different ideas. So the opposite of this one would be for every supervisor to look at the document, make own comments, and then submit the 3 to the student so that he can, put the comments together, synchronize the comments. Now, in many cases where we use maybe hard copies, that is the only way of doing it. And the students will be given comments from the 3 different supervisors, and he or she will try to address the comments as she sees them. And in the case of difficulties, he or she will consult individual supervisor. But I would say that where maybe this is done, it is done this way, then there should be a point whereby the 3 supervisors should meet, because it is sometimes difficult for the student to address a certain comments that address a certain issue equally as the 3 supervisors want. So if the supervisor don't meet, then it will be difficult because every time the work is returned, there will be a similar, concern from one of the supervisors. So I would really suggest that whatever method is used, the 3 supervisors should have a kind of a schedule to meet once in a while to actually ask the question, how is the student doing? And if one raises concern, maybe it can be discussed and perhaps, corrected and call upon students, to do what is wanted. But if it is done really uncoordinated, that can cause really a problem to the student, but also a long period of, back and forth, movements of the document. That's what I can comment. I don't know if there are some different views from participants based on your experiences. Yes, Prof. Professor Twaha.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Benda. I will shorten it like Benda so that I don't have
Can
to
even make it Ben.
Ben, yeah, that is even better.
Okay.
So, good morning over there, and good morning to all my colleagues. First of all, I would like to start by apologizing. I came late. In Kampala right now, we are all busy going to school, secondary and primary schools, picking our children. So it was trapped in a terrible traffic jam. So I have had to walk. I left the car somewhere. I walked to make sure that I come and I attend. So I pick the car later on, but my children are already at home. So having said that, I thank you very much for the presentation, though I missed most of it. And sorry about the technical hitch which came up, but all the same, nonetheless, we are able to pick the point. So back to the issue of, it's an issue of supervision still, just like you have said. I have many students who are doing MSc, whom we are supervising more than 1 people. So we have 3 supervisors, 2 supervisors. And what the scenario you are talking about is very common here. So you find that quite often the students are left in confusion. But at Makerere University, we have found a solution to this. in that we try to encourage our colleagues with their students to do some sort of blending management of such a situation. For example, quite often when we are interacting with our students, we do it on Zoom. You can't do it on Zoom, then you send emails, you exchange emails, and then you make comments, you send back the feedback to the students, you give the feedback to the student, and then they respond. But also we encourage physical meetings, regular physical meetings, on top of progress reports, written reports, and all this can make the situation better. But let me go to a more serious situation of the PhD. What we do for the PhD in Makerere is that we encourage what we call doctoral committee meetings. Most of our students are registered for maybe 3 to 5 years where they can complete their PhDs. So what we do under the doctoral committee arrangement is that the policy recommends that during the first 1 or 2 years, the meetings must be regular and frequent, so that you can meet maybe 5 times in a year, something like that. So that when you have issues like I've talked about, with one supervisor having a different view and another supervisor bringing another view, so that the student is held hostage, you can avoid that by regular meeting. Then you talk to the student physically and verbally, and then you harmonize and coordinate things better. So that as the student progresses in their 3rd, 4th, and maybe final year or final years, the meetings become less and less as the student and the supervisors perfect their job. And that way we have reduced that problem of what we have been talking about. Because in the past, students used to complain. Say, but Professor so and so said they do it like this. Then another professor said this and this, and they would even think maybe that the professors are confused. And sometimes it would even bring conflict. Some students would even give up and say, no, I'm confused. I don't know what to do. This one is telling me this, and the other one is saying the opposite of what the other one said. So I think it is very important that during supervision or during the supervision process, as we move through the research process, we move together, we understand each other, we respect each other, we actually do it collaboratively, as people have already said. And then at the end of the day, everybody learns. Even the supervisors learn, by the way. It's not an issue of the students learning. Me, I've learned a lot from my students. For example, right now I have a student from the Democratic Republic of Congo. We are doing climate change scenarios regarding soil and water management in the Congo. But this guy is very sharp. In fact, the UN has already hired him. He's still my student, but he has a consultancy with UN, which I have never had. He's getting a lot of money, better than you ask the supervisors. So some students, the point I'm trying to make is that some students are sharp. You can learn from them, but of course, that should not be translated into arrogance on the part of the student, just because you know a lot. You are still a student. But the point I'm trying to make is that some students are really good, and you can actually learn from them. And some professors are also good. They can also teach their fellow professors. So it's an interesting exercise. So I always pity my colleagues that if you don't supervise, you miss a lot. What are you teaching when you are not supervising? Because when you supervise, you see mistakes, common mistakes that people make, and it is from those mistakes that we improve ourselves, and we become, first of all, better supervisors, and secondly, better teachers. And then for Makerere University, like Makerere University, we become a better research-led teaching university. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Prof. And I think really we have shared the experience, from Makerere. Like for the rules and regulations, yeah, it is one thing having them, but it's another thing, implementing them. So I think the arrangement that you have for regular meetings is an answer to such problems. But the problem might be now, how do you respect these regular sessions? You are a team of 3 or 4, but having maybe 1 or 2 other persons within the team might sometimes be a problem. But I think that is the right way to do it. And we normally say communication really, is an answer to many things, but it's also poor communication is a source of different problems. But I would just want to add on to this one that in some cases, I think in some projects where you have got, PhD and MS students maybe under one project, you find that maybe supervisors also allocate PhD students in a way that they can also help MSc students. Not really supervising, you can use a different term, but they help, to guide, the MSc students. And sometimes, students talking to each other, they can understand better than maybe, a professor talking to the student. So it can really help, to reduce the kind of challenges that, MSc students might be having. Yeah, I still have 3 minutes. Can we, if there are any comment and questions, experience? Okay, if there are no questions, then let's see again. Like yesterday, we had the question of way forward after this training, after this particular session. What value, has the interaction imparted to you? We have heard 2 comments from colleagues, but what 2 things are you going to introduce, observe, or practice to improve your supervision? Like the case of Makere, do we have it maybe in your university? If not, do you want to try it out and see how it works and if it improves the situation? Okay, much of the things we have shared come from some of the documents we have. The Inter-University Council of East Africa has quality supervision for postgraduate students. We have regulations for higher degree at UCR and some information from Sokoine University of Agriculture. I take this opportunity to thank you very much for your listening and understanding on the technology problem until when we reach at this particular end. Thank you very much. And I wish you a better use of the discussion that we have.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Professor Tisekwa. And I want to thank everybody else for being very patient with us and for being understanding. Today we had a few challenges, but I think we've managed them well and we've come to the end of the session quite well. So Professor Tisekwa has basically completed his task, which was maybe to present as he did yesterday, and also to present today. If we were sitting in a face-to-face sort of meeting, I think we would give him a very good applause by clapping. I don't know how we do it on on Zoom. Maybe everybody unmutes and we show our appreciation to Professor Tisekwa by clapping.
We have clapped.
You have clapped. Okay. On behalf of everybody, clapping.
Thank you.
Okay, so tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's meet again tomorrow morning, and let's try to be on time so that we can start exactly at 9 o'clock. And tomorrow we will be listening to Professor Dominic Gerugaba, the Executive Director of ICAD. And he'll be talking about elements of good supervision. So we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you again, and have a good day.
Thank you so much, Patrick.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you a lot. Thank you a lot.
Okay, closing today's session. See you tomorrow.